and welcome to Whiteboard Briefings presented by me, Ian Clark. This briefing is going to be on one of the manoeuvres, which is parallel park, reverse park exercise. I'll come back to that in a moment. For the purposes of the UK driving test, at the moment you have to learn 4 manoeuvres, which involve reversing. One is reversing into a bay, and then just reversing. Another one is putting forward into a bay and pulling back out. And another one is pulling across the other side of the road and coming back. And this one here, which is the parallel park. Now, on the driving test itself, you will only, at the moment, the way things are, you will only do one manoeuvre. It's a bit random. It is up to the driving examiner what's available to them. So this one here, I think arguably, is perhaps, for a lot of people, people's least favourite, the parallel park. I've found anyway, most people are not. If you had a choice on which manoeuvre to do, I think a lot of people wouldn't choose this one, but you don't get a choice. It's really something that the examiner will choose. With the manoeuvres, the 4 that I've mentioned, there are 3 component parts. I will explain what I mean by the 3 component parts. The 3 component parts, the bits that mean you've successfully completed the manoeuvre or what the examiner is going to assess you on. So this is in no particular order. Shall we just say control, which is your clutch and your brake. Now you notice I didn't say accelerator because a lot of modern vehicles on tick over, that's with the engine just running, there's enough power to do the manoeuvre. Most vehicles, it's just your clutch and your brake. That's the control. The next one, let's just say observation, looking around, making sure it's safe. And the last one is accuracy. And when I say last one, that's no particular order. And I think perhaps you'd agree that perhaps it's the accuracy side that people get a little bit anxious or worried about getting in. So let's just go through the various stages. And I'll give you the briefing as per the UK driving test. What I mean is, when you've passed your test, you'll find your own way of doing this quite successfully, I'm sure. But I'm just giving a framework that I give to my students. Instructors teach this differently. Different ways of teaching it. I'm just telling you what I teach my students, when to steer, how much. But as long as it's control, clutch and brake, observation, it's safe, and accuracy, and those 3 bits are in place, it's fine. Doesn't matter how you do it. But I'll just give you a briefing of how I teach and how the test is conducted. So, from a UK driving test perspective, if you get this one, you'll only do one of the 4. Just say you get this one. There we go. You should be able to do all of them comfortably anyway. You'll be driving along and the examiner will tell you, very polite, right, I'd like to pull in on the left, please, as soon as you can. So that's fine. You check your mirrors, give your necessary left signal, and pull in. Just say something like that. Once you've pulled up here in a park position, I'll say you've pulled up on the left, the examiner will then give the instruction. So the instruction is something like this, because they have to speak in a certain way so it's clear to everybody. So they'll say, I'd like you to pull level with the car in front and stop. Then I would like you to reverse back and end up in a parked position within 2 of your vehicle lengths. Some people are a bit confusing. What are you saying? They'll say parallel park. Okay, but it must be within 2 of your vehicle lengths. So, in other words, from a test perspective, the examiners won't use a real life gap, but they will give you a limit of 2 of your vehicle lengths. I think that's probably to do with people's cars being at risk behind. So somebody would be very impressed if they saw 6 or 7 learners getting very close to their car. So there will only be the leading vehicle. There will not be a real life gap. And the parallel park, reverse park's always done on the left. They won't get you to pull up on the other side. The examiners will try and choose, or they will choose an area that's suitable for the manoeuvre. What I mean, it's not too busy, because the examiners don't want to be stuck there all day, trust me. But it won't be just absolutely no one around. There could be a few vehicles, a bit of a challenge, good. But it won't be really, really busy. So they've asked you to pull in on the left, that's fine. Then they've asked you to pull level with the car in front and end up in a park position within 2 of your vehicle lengths. Fine. So before you move off from here, you do your possum. Now, possum stands for preparation, which is your clutch down, first gear, ready to go. Observation, possum, P-O, the observation is checking your door mirror, but also checking over your right shoulder. There are other blind spots, but particularly looking over your right shoulder for people, the dog walker, the lady with a buggy, whatever. So do all your observations and then your signal. Now, I always recommend signalling when you move off, even if you think there's no one around. Because as far as you know, somebody could come out of a driveway. It's just safer. You won't be penalised for signalling if there's nobody around. I know you don't have to, but I tell my students, look, just cover it. It's best to signal and then move. Now, if you're moving away, you should move off within 3 seconds. What I mean is you signal to move away and then a vehicle comes up behind you. I would recommend cancelling the signal because this driver stops and wonders what you're doing. You've now caused a confusing situation. So if you cancel your signal, vehicles come up behind you. It doesn't matter in front of you, but it's behind you. I would recommend cancelling your signal. So you've done your possum and then you move away. Your right signal out, bum-bum, and then you move away. Now the examiners will make sure you've got enough room to pull in and then pull out again. As you pull level the vehicle, you're going to do the parallel park, reverse park alongside. Give a left signal to let people behind or maybe somebody wanting to cross the road know that you're pulling level with the vehicle in front. So give your signal to pull up level the vehicle. That's one signal in, another signal out, and then another to pull level with the vehicle in front. So there you are, we pull nice and snug. Now when I say snug, again this is taught differently, I'll explain what I mean. When I say snug, not hitting your door mirror on their door mirror, but just enough that other vehicles can get through. If you do start wide, which I know some instructors do get their students to start wide because that's their method, it's not wrong, it's fine, but it can put a bit of pressure on this driver, the learner, because other vehicles can come up and stopping and perhaps get a bit impatient. Some people are great, but I think you appreciate some people are in a bit of a hurry. So I get my students to pull up here. This is what I teach. Obviously, whoever's teaching you, teach them different. And then that's fine. So you've got your left signal on. And I say go into reverse straight away. They are your reverse lights, straight away. The reason being, that's your way of communicating. This is one of the ways of communicating with people around you. It's not just indicators, reverse lights on. So, oh, that driver there more than likely wants to do a parallel park, fine. I would always recommend cancelling your indicator during the manoeuvre. It's not a fault if you leave it running, by the way, just perhaps more annoying, especially if you've got a loud indicator. So cancel get it into reverse, then cancel your signal, fine. That's what I teach anyway. That is stage 1. There you are, in reverse. Now, I get my students to put this left-hand door mirror down, quite a long way, fully down. The reason being, when you come near the curb, you'll be able to see the curb, as simple as that. That's part of the function of door mirror. Now, if the person teaching you won't let you put your door mirror down, don't put it down. My car, which is a Golf, when you go into reverse, the door mirror, just the left mirror goes down automatically. Why? To give you a better view of the curb. And when you move off, the Volkswagen, when you go in first gear and move, it's down, then it comes back up again to the original position. But I've always taught my students to put this door mirror down. But listen to the person who's training you to do this. It's up to them. Okay, so that's stage 1, door mirror down. Then you come back to stage 2. And the method I teach is where my student's door mirror is level with the end of the vehicle, give or take. It's not an exact science. But when the door mirror is roughly, without hitting the car too much or moving it, when your door mirror is level with the end of the car, you stop. That's stage 2. Now, coming back, we'll come back to the observation side. When you're coming back, if a vehicle should come past you, get it going the right way, this way or that way, you should stop. Now, as far as I know, if this person, this learner coming back, keeps moving and a vehicle passes, as far as I know, it's a major fault. Now, I don't want to go into the ins and the outs of majors and minors, but a major fault is game over. Just one major, game over. It's a major fault. I don't like to use the F word, which is fail, because it really shouldn't use that word, but it's a major fault. If you keep moving, this is the observation side. So if something comes that way or that way, or even for pedestrian, is going to cross the road. But more often than not, it's moving traffic around you. So if something comes this way or that way, stop. Don't hurry it. Take your time. In some ways, the more time you take, without being silly about it, the better. So just take your time. So you've come back to stage 2. Door mirror is level at the end. Great. And you're going to steer full lock. Now, I don't want to insult your intelligence or patronise you, but a lot of you know what full lock is. Turn the steering wheel to the left as far as it will go. Dry steer. Again, dry steer, one of these expressions, that means turning the steering wheel when you're not moving. Dry steer. Now, quite frowned upon, not by the examiners, but a lot of instructors, because it's wear and tear on their vehicle. They might not let you. I allow my students to, because I see it's an occupational hazard, and I do it. I dry steer to get myself in. So this is what I allow. So dry steer this way. How often have you seen friends, relatives dry steering to get into a tight situation, tight parking situation? So that's stage 2. You've got your full lock, dry steer to the left. Great. Do your observation, look around, take your time. If you hurry, it's more likely to go wrong. Have a good look around, and if there are people walking into you, should we just say your red zone, coming over here, then stop. Don't keep moving. If there are people walking into the area you're reversing into. Fine. It's all clear. You've got your full lock on, back you go. So that's stage 2. Stage 3 is arguably the trickier bit. Stage 1 and 2, not too bad. Stage 3. Now, stage 3 is when you steer the other way, essentially. So how much, and I'll come to that in a moment, is full lock, dry steer, full lock the other way. So that's pretty easy. It's the when. Because when you come back, if you steer too early, you'll end up coming in the middle of the road. And if you steer too late, in other words, you're right on the curb, you're not going to get in. So I'm going to come to what I tell my students about stage 3. So your mirror is down. I'll just draw the mirror here. This is your door mirror, and that's the side of your car. And also, we'll talk about the angle of 2 o'clock. I will explain. So when you get to the angle of 2 o'clock, or where the curb just starts to disappear in your door mirror, I will explain. So when you come back, if this is 12 o'clock, straight ahead, and back you go, back you go. This is, should we say, 1 o'clock angle? A little bit more, say 2 o'clock, and that's 3. So when you get to an angle of 2, or where the curb's just disappearing in your door mirror, and also another thing, I think of it like this, if that was a drain cover, you'd perhaps be on the edge of a drain cover. So just to give you those reference points. With practice, my students get to say, you get to know where that point is. So I've said after you test, you'll work out your own system for doing this. It's just a framework. So when you get to the angle of 2 o'clock, the curb disappears, then dry steer, full lock, the other way. Again, I allow my students to dry steer. And then, as long as it's clear, continue back. Fine. If you go over the 2 car lengths, so this is 1 car length, and then, which is back to here. If you go over that distance, it is a major fault. Just be clear on that, because the examiner will say you must complete the manoeuvre within 2 of your vehicle lengths. That's your vehicle length there. If you go over that, game over, so to speak. You've got to complete it in there. So you've come back and you've got in within your 2 vehicle lengths, that's fine. One of the ways to tell that you are 2 vehicle lengths is when you see tyres and tarmac. Now, some of you might have heard that expression before, tyres and tarmac, when you're queuing in traffic at lights or wherever, and the vehicle in front, you can see the bottom of their tyres and a little bit of tarmac. That's tyres and tarmac. So when you've got to tyres and tarmac, don't go over that really, because that's probably one car length. It's a bit of an optical illusion. What I mean is it looks like you're about here, but tyres and tarmac, you probably are a lot further back than you think. It looks like you're close. If you got out and have a look, you'd see you're quite a distance. So when you're at tyres and tarmac, fine. Now, you are allowed to shunt. And what I mean is, just say you've come back, you've full locked it round, and you've just caught the curb because you've overcooked it a little bit, you've gone a bit far. It's not a problem, as long as you can sort it out, which you should be able to do. So if you've just touched the curb, it's fine. I did say touch. If you thump the curb, bash it, it's a major fault. But I think that's fair enough because it's lack of control. If you lightly tap the curb, that's okay. In some ways, you should lightly tap the curb because you want to get in as far as you can to shunt in correctly. So you come back, just say you've tapped the curb, great. A low curb is your enemy. A dropped curb, a low curb, because you might not feel it. So be really careful, because sometimes the examiner could ask you to reverse in. It could be a drop curb, somebody's driveway. They'll say to you, don't worry if you end up in a park position in the driveway, but it's a bit of a pain for you because you can't feel the curb. So a high curb is quite useful because you can feel it. A low curb, just be that bit more sensitive, try and feel where the curb is. Because if you go well up onto the dropped or the low curb, it is game over. So back you go, you've just caught the curb. There's your reverse. So you stop. You've touched it. So what you would do now to correct it, my students, I don't say go all the way back out. I say correct it within this shaded area. So what you would do is, it's the old dry steering full lock bit. Again, you've seen people do this. Full lock it round, and then in you go. Now my car has got a good steering lock. What I mean by that, it'll go around quite a long way, and it's quite good. It'll take you in. Taxis have a very good steering lock. They can turn on a sixpence, which means they can do a full circle. Again, sixpence, coin, years ago, yeah, you know, maybe you don't know, but what it means is a very good, somebody can call the cab, it can turn around. So if you've got a good steering lock, it'll go a long way. It'll just do that. If you are shunting, it does mean extra observation. So you pull forward, get it straight, and then into reverse again, and come back in a straight line within about, well, you go back to tyres and tarmac again. So you reverse back till you see the tyres and tarmac, but do look around because you are shunting. You will need that extra bit of observation. Now the finished position should really be close to the curb and there, but there is, from my experience, there is a little bit of tolerance. Now, again, this is what I think, not official, but the edge of the double, if there were double yellow lines, there won't be, but if there were, just think the examiners do allow that little bit of a gap, but not right out on the road, just a little bit of about a foot or so. If there were double yellow lines, then you'd be roughly on the edge of those. So that's got you in, hopefully, maybe with shunting, maybe first time, fine. And then the examiner, it's not over until you've moved away safely. The minute you don't think, oh, I've done it. Well, you've done perhaps the tricky bit. Make sure you move away safely. So the examiner say, right, thank you very much. Move away when it's safe or when you're ready. So you do your possum, do all your checks. Now, if you're steering it straight, I would recommend, well, I do to my students, I get them to steer full lock this way before they move off, because that saves going, if it's not, then you're steering straight, you go forwards then out, gets you a bit close to the vehicle in front. So if you've got full lock, possum, preparation, clutch ready to go, observation, look over into your mirror, your blind spot, look all round, but especially over here, signal, and if it's safe, move away. And if you've got that full lock on, it'll just give a nice curve, then you've moved away safely. So that's the reverse park or parallel park. Quite in depth, but you know, it'll answer some of the questions or confusions maybe you've had. Thanks for watching. Hope you found it helpful. Yeah, great, thank you.